Putin's regime, of course, government, are more interested, of course, in doing their own thing, especially with China, because although they're supposed to be allied with China, there's still rivalries going on there. Because if China are doing their own space station, then Russia feel, well, actually, we should be doing our own as well.
The US State Department said it was surprised by the announcement. I mean, I'm not a space scientist. I'm not an international policy expert, although I like to think I am in my own lunchtime occasionally, right? But I mean, I'm not surprised by this at all. Should they have been?
No, they should be surprised because they announced this even before the present crisis.
Okay, I didn't see that.
They're planning to pull out. So absolutely right. One of the reasons they announced it some time ago is because the agreement between the United States, Japan, the European Space Agency, Canada, and Russia is due to come to an end, and that's the point, because the life cycle of the station is coming to a close as well. But engineers have said actually the station can keep going till about 2030, and America were hoping then all the signatories would actually keep it going till 2030. But Russia had already indicated that probably not. They didn't want to go that further, and that Putin's regime, of course, government, are more interested, of course, in doing their own thing, especially with China, because although they're supposed to be allied with China, there's still rivalries going on there. Because if China are doing their own space station, then Russia feel, well, actually, we should be doing our own as well. And Putin is looking backwards in time towards the Soviet era, where Russia used the space program as very much for propaganda purposes. And you can't really do that with the International Space Station because it's there for cooperative ventures.
Yeah.
And when, of course, they have done it for propaganda purposes, it has backfired on them. And of course, the head of Roscosmos, Dmitry Rogozin, has just been dismissed, of course, and replaced with a new figure, Yuri Borisov, who one of his first things is saying that we will actually not continue after 2024. We will build our own space station. But that's going to cause up a lot of other problems, I think, for Russia now, because one of the reasons they joined the ISS program was because they wanted to replace the Mir space station, which entered the Earth's atmosphere, with Mir 2, but they couldn't afford it. Their economy collapsed after the fall of the Soviet Union. So by joining internationally, that would be great. Now, when they first announced they were going to build the space station, that was great. The Russian economy was booming. They got great trade deals, but then came their invasion of Ukraine, the sanctions. And it's going to be questionable whether they can actually afford a major international independent space program and wage what will end up being a long, drawn-out war in Ukraine.
Well, indeed. What do you think, apart from the war in Ukraine, the declining relations with Western countries, is promoting this? Is it really about different projects, different goals in space? How might what the Russians want differ from what the Chinese want and what the Europeans and the USA want in space?
They all actually want the same things, interestingly enough. Russia would like to probably get into the commercial market with space. They've already used some commercial activities on their section of the ISS, actually. But I think they'd like to get into that more, offering the possibility, because they've already seen how successful America has been. China actually last week announced they're actually going to have a commercial wing to their space program, taking people up into space. So they're all looking at that. They all obviously want to look for space exploration, but let's look at the reality of this now. A lot of this is for commercialization of space. Raw materials from the moon and the asteroids, that's going to be critical, preferably for helium-3, an isotope of helium that's available on the moon, which would be perfect for nuclear fusion reactors, not available on the Earth, only available on the moon. It's one of the reasons the Chinese are pushing for it. So I think what we're going to see is a commercial aspect to this. This is for commercial reasons as much as anything else. And of course, if you're going to not use oils and carbon-based fuels on the Earth, you're going to look for alternatives. You actually have to look to the space program actually for that level of technology, and that's why they're all pushing. So I think actually the Europeans, the Americans, the Chinese, and India now, we've got to throw India into the hat now, they're pushing for this, and Russia are all looking for the same thing, the commercialization of space for their own economic benefit.
This is really intriguing if you consider all the problems that we have on terra firma, Mother Earth, and they're all fighting it out in space. Who decides, who governs what goes on in space? Is there some big international agreement, or can countries pretty much do what they want once they leave the Earth's atmosphere?
Well, in theory, you're all supposed to work together. There is an international space treaty which dates to 1967, which is grossly out of date now. I mean, it really needs updating. And you almost need a body, really, probably based at the United Nations, though given the United Nations behaviour with Ukraine, whether it's really practical or not is another argument, to work together. China often ignored the international agreements for going into space. For instance, they've just launched part of their space station, and the large booster is just going to fall to Earth. They haven't guided it down at all, and everyone's looking at it with raised eyebrows that they're letting this huge piece of kit just fall back down without any proper re-entry capability for it.
Wow.
And in theory, you are supposed to all work together and to cooperate. But that's not going on very well at the moment. Although, to be fair to Russia, they often are very good with this and often do cooperate and tell everybody, tell the Americans, we're launching this is the angle it's going at, please be careful, we're going to put it at this angle. So they are supposed to cooperate. But once you leave Earth's area and go to, say, places like the moon or anywhere else, there is no international agreements on that, apart from the treaty that says you can't claim anything.